A scion of many worlds. Reality cracks open as Jasper dashes to the side and tries not to be in front of the edge of the breaking of things. There's a resonating effect as he slams his claws into it from the side and begins repairing the damage. But if he were to get close, he would end up getting skewered in moments. The problem is that he's not sure how much damage these effects can cause and what they will do to him. They have a physically present, so there's kinetic force involved at the very least, and the fact that the initial portions appear to be about as wide as a needle means that he will be stabbed if he's hit from the front. There's also the fact that these dimensional breaches both do and do not act like standard physical objects. They do in that they can accept weight, offer resistance, and clearly have radiation waves bouncing off them to highlight their positions in both the visible spectrum and in the ranges that require his antenna to perceive. They do not act like physical objects in that, while they provide resistance, they are unaffected by things. The forces he strikes the cracks are high enough to, in theory, shift electron degenerate matter if you could extract such a thing from a star without it detonating. Currently, his self-enhancement is stopping him from simply being shred to ribbons by the tiny cracks in reality. But slamming into them and not breaking is far from pleasant. They're also opening considerably faster than he can close them, and the shadow has resorted into area denial again, this time with the breaking of reality. I wonder. Jasper considers as he starts to turn and churn the energies of the other direction, as they are nowhere near as responsive as Axiom, and he can feel multiple frequencies from it. It's going to take years, if not centuries, of study to sort out this bag of snakes. But the important thing of note is that some of the energies, when drawn out of the other direction, repair dimensional breaches, and others agitate and expand them. He shoves them all back in and draws out the ones he perceived as beneficial. The hole he made closes up and he begins pulling more and more. Oh? So you figured that out? I suppose you'll want congratulations for doing the equivalent of not killing yourself. The shadow mocks him as a cascade of dimensional cracks hurtles towards him. He draws out as much of the healing energy as he can, and then throws it back to clear a path between him and her. He then spits out a lungful of air that he accelerates and hardens. He does no harm to her, but a pair of souls have their tethers cut and vanish. What's the matter? Afraid of going in deep? And he ignores her taunts and wraps himself with the more restoring energies and charges. His mere presence is enough to cause the dimensional cracks to seal up faster than she can open them. Just before he can just lock her in the other direction and see if she's got the skills to escape, she shoots out with the souls being dragged behind her. She dodges a black hole, stream of plasma, and is winged by a gracer shot before she gets her armor fully back in place. Armor that Jasper starts to attack by opening up another conversion array to convert the next attack through it. A gigantic kinetic round slams clean through the shadow's shield, and dozens of more souls retreat. For the sake of science, can you maintain one of those away from the fight? I need to run a sensor drone through that. His mother asks over the communicator. Oh, I know. Studying this is going to take up all my lab time. Jasper confirms as he dips backwards away from a wave of wind aimed directly at him, and then effects a teleport away from an explosion. An explosion that leaves behind a broken dimensional wall. That's interesting. Here you go, but, please excuse me, Mother. It appears that the shadow is setting explosives in the dimensional equivalent locations to attack from beyond. We need to set up a lab, she says plainly. Yes, well, first I'll focus on surviving until we can actually study this, Jasper remarks as he opens the array just above the wall. It's outright comforting to see the small drone zip through it and then start going into a figure-8 pattern to constantly fly through it over and over. Well, yes, obviously. Thank you, though. Any doubts left? Jasper asks. Even before you got your memories back, you were still you. jumping onto problems far too large to be practically dealt with and rolling them over onto themselves until it sorted itself out in a messy but efficient way. "It works," he protests. "I did say efficient," she concedes, and he lets out a huff of amusement. "If you find any useful data, tell me, please. Just so you know, I'm aware of the multiple frequencies and their deleterious or beneficial effects on the dimensional boundaries. There are many types, and I do not have proper classification for them yet," Jasper explains, and there's a sound of deep thought. "Hey, big guy, you found a way to kill her yet?" Magrica demands into the communicators. Even as he dips under a renewed attack, it's a crashing wave of detonations from the other direction that seems to lead from her to him, that's trying to herd him into zones he can vaguely make out building energy within. No doubt she's trying to lay mines and chase him into them, chipping at her defenses. She only has so many souls to hide behind. She's also shifting her attacks so they come from the other direction. So why won't you let anyone near her? She's more or less constantly pulling at my soul, and I don't think you can resist that. Last time I let someone else get close to her, Lady Clarity ended up a puppet on her strings in seconds flat. Also, while I'm not sure about your ability to resist, I know the child within you can't. I don't know at what point a fetus gains a soul, but I am not risking it. I also don't know who else is pregnant, and to be frank, this world has been through enough horror without soulless babies to add to the mix. Yes, that's a very good reason, Magrica says, before the axiom distortion of another arriving member of Titan Squad draws everyone's attention. Gears present and accounted for. I hope you guys like a railgun because I've got a beast of one. Target is invulnerable outside of specific energy frequencies. Conserve your ammunition while I build something little human. Morgana states into the frequency, and Jasper smiles to himself even as he dips over what feels like a maw trying to snap onto him. The shadows apparently drawing more inspiration from nature. The bitey parts of it at any rate. "Foreign energy siphon?" Jasper asks. "If she has a small attachment that drenches a weapon in the proper types of energy, then it would easily be effective in a fight like this." "Something like that. Unfortunately, Kutha is unresponsive to this energy type, and I don't have any axiom ride on me to experiment with that. I'm going to grab your scanning drone. Get it ready to latch on. My own person is drenched in the appropriate energy types, and I've alloyed my very being to act like a living siphon. That's something else we're going to talk about later. Is it wrong that I've been mentally calling it soul steel?" he asks, unable to keep from smiling. Sure, he's dodging dimensional fissures created by an ancient soul-stealing psychotic, but that doesn't mean he can't enjoy himself, especially as she gets more and more obvious the more upset she gets. He's also learning from her and gradually shearing away all the souls she's using. Each one gone reduces her ability to control things and makes it even easier to shear away more. "Oh, Emmanuel, just get to the drone," Morgana says, and he chuckles. "Soul steal? Really? I mean, unless he's directly stating that the realm is a spiritual one, which has yet to be conclusively proven in any capacity. It's just an overly flowery and far from descriptive name. Of course, having said that, due to linguistic drift and the fact that galactic trade is a different language, entirely metals like tritite, proton, and kutha are all effectively gibberish outside the varied languages used to name them. We need proper scientific classifications for these phenomena sometime yesterday. We don't even know if these are actually souls yet, so much as conscious echoes impressed into an overlaying dimensional energy field that reacts to conscious thought and stores data from the living, which is pretty much the definition of a soul, while also failing to meet the standards on so many levels. Damn it, I never assumed theology would become an important part of my studies and day-to-day life." "Do you always do that?" Magrica asks, and Morgana turns to regard the metak as she looks up from her data. Do what? Talk to yourself like that. I don't really understand most of it, and you will, little one. You're carrying my granddaughters. I will make sure you understand these things. Morgana assures her, and the sheer look of challenge across the impertinent metak's face is equal parts amusing and frustrating. She's trying to help the tiny lunatic, and she insists on fighting. Well, fine, she can fight. Brute Arcana are so named for a very good reason, especially as she's aware of the danger of being punctured and has already taken steps to counter it. I know knowledge is power, but strength is more valuable. Magrica counters, and Morgana simply points to the blur where her drone is launching repeated attacks onto the shadow. That tool of mine requires no strength at all to use, but a great deal of knowledge instead. It's powerful enough that I could reduce both cities and armies into little more than a smoking hole if I wanted, she explains. And you're struggling to kill one woman with it. One woman who has made herself a living army that is neither dead nor alive. This is well outside any tested parameter of an Omnic D fighter drone, Morgana replies before her eyes widen at the data readout on Jasper. Oh my goodness, he's found the equivalent of Axiom Ride in this new energy type and has flash digested it so that it's in all his fur, blood, and keratin. Also, he's been splicing himself with humans. She looks up from the data readout with all her eyes closed and takes a deep breath that inflates her entire anatomy before letting it go. He's going to drop my blood pressure right through the deck plating and deflate me with worry. He's just as reckless as ever. Even death couldn't slow him down. Well, that's a good thing, isn't it? Magrica asks, and Morgan opens all 8 eyes and gives her a pointed look in a way that only someone evolved from a spider can. Not even death can stop him. He'll always be back. That is technically true, but still a problem. Morgana considers. He is back. He is still himself, and that doesn't mean that I like the idea of him dying or that I won't miss him terribly when he does, even if he does come back eventually. No matter how great a warrior they end up, a mother still worries, eh? Magrica asks, and Morgana's look turns more questioning. My own mother said the same. Yes, very much so. You never stop being a parent, Morgana says before she turns her gaze to where Jasper is weaving around multiple blasts of differing types, all of them giving off dangerous frequencies. He's far better in a fight than I could ever be, but I'd gladly trade places with him just to keep him safe. My mom said something like that too, Magrica says with a smile. After everything that happens, all the craziness, he's still just some mother's child. We all are, Morgana remarks. There is a point where you can burn someone and all they feel is cold. It's that way with rage as well. It burns so hot you stop feeling the heat, your blood stops hammering and your mind clears. You're still furious beyond anything and everything. But the heat no longer stops you from controlling yourself. It all leads back to the Earthani. He is responsible for every wound and inconvenience. He has exposed her secrets, turned her own city into a liability, killed one of her favorite bodies, shattered her ship, destroyed her home, raised armies against her, and finally, and worst of all, he has turned the long-promised rescue against her. She is the last true survivor of the crash, the only crew member of the nest to endure, and now the rescue is here to exterminate her rather than bring her back to civilization. Unforgivable. He's fast. He is strong. He is ridiculously clever and always finds an answer. She's done. She's sick of him and sick of all this. Not everything in life has an answer. If he won't die properly, then it's time to make sure he's extra dead. She takes half of her remaining shields, the half-animal souls that are worth so much less than her that just having them near feels like a loss of her own value, and sends them out in a wave. He catches and begins cutting at the tethering to free the worthless things. Dozens are lost each second, but she simply piles them in and has them grab at him. The pathetic things are eager, recognizing that each one that makes contact will be quickly cut from her influence. She shatters the dimensions behind him and pushes him beyond, past where she has ever dared to step, past where she would hang the souls of the forgotten to weaken them, past where she has ever pulled a soul back from, and further still. She pushes and pushes and pushes until she can feel nothing more from the remaining souls driving onto him. She then closes the breach and smiles as the barrier drops. He's done, and she still has 250,000 souls to shield herself with and to slaughter this pathetic army. The scream of utter rage from the strange spider alien draws her attention. She will start there.